what she's been working on. October 10th and 11th, I have received approval to move forward on those dates. Committee members are able, some of them are able to attend one or both of those dates. So we'll be working full days on those 2 days. Then October 25th, we'll have another one. Our hopes is by the November thing is to have something to put in front of you to look at so that we can spend the rest of the time looping out with teachers and sharing with them on how that will affect them so that prior to contract time, they will fully know how they will be evaluated.
Okay. So, I don't think of Creighton as a rich district by any means, wealthy in terms of like dollars, but I definitely think we have the best staff. I'm hearing from my position at Stand for Children a lot of challenges that LEAs have moving forward. I guess I'm not hearing that we have that many.
Well, sometimes people call me Pollyanna. I think the challenges are making sure our data is valid and reliable, and we're having Dr. Spiller work on that and looking at an outside consultant.
The challenge is going to come when people get ranked on that system from highly effective to ineffective, and then people begin to start challenging the validity and reliability of the measurement tools as well as the process for developing it. So I think that's yet to come. Some of that is yet to come.
Okay.
Be interested in being sick the night of that board meeting when that happens.
I mean, I think it's important to say from this position as a board member that this is a brand new evaluation, I don't know, a way of doing evaluations, and at this point there are not high stakes decision making attached to it. And I think that to get there, especially with the ratings, I mean, I might not be on the board when this happens, but I would think that we would need multiple measures of data over a period of time, probably 3 years or something, before we had high stakes decision making. I don't know if that makes people feel more comfortable moving forward.
Could I just add something in terms of high stakes? Something that we've learned as we've been working with WestEd and observations and high stakes is in the eye of the beholder, and a change of an evaluation system that affects, from the perception of the person being evaluated, that affects their employment status when they're unfamiliar with that system. I believe that people will see it as high stakes even without dollars attached to it or any of those pieces. So, but I do think that we have to be aware and tolerant of the system, and that the fact, as you said, we're just coming out with the implementation of it, and that we need to assume going in that we're going to need to make some adjustments as we go through this. Exactly what you're saying.
Could I, excuse me, could I also interject a thought? Merit pay, pay for performance, principal merit, etc., isn't new to Creighton District, and really a merit system for teachers started in the 90s when our superintendent was Dr. Covey, and at that time too we developed a principal and all the way to a superintendent merit system. And then in November 2000, when Prop 301 came in and the pay for performance bucket, and with Career Ladder, again, there was a student performance component there too. So I think that it isn't a brand new concept to the employee in Creighton District.
Okay.
And from I'm not having quite that perspective that you have, Dr. Boyle, of having been here in the 90s, or of being someone who draws a paycheck from the district, as we do not. But it seems like after all these years, we still have arguments about the superintendent's whether or not the evaluation tool is a good tool. And I remember years in the past where we've had board members who have said this is absolutely ridiculous when you have this academic achievement that you have a superintendent getting this, or whether it's good, bad, bad, good, whatever. And so I think going to the point of, I think Mr. Zaragoza was trying to make, is that this is going to be something that's going to really take a lot of continual defining. And I think if you were to ask us all individually what we thought of the superintendent evaluation tool that we have to fill out every year, I think you'd get different answers. But I think I don't think anyone would say absolutely love it, I'm going to stick with it.
Including the superintendent.
I bet. So I'm not sure. It's hard for me also because there are some things we want to be as objective as possible, and I know that filling out the superintendent evaluation every year, or trying to be objective and not subjective. But it's also, I think, really difficult. The flip side of that is there are some things that it's just really hard to come up with some objective data that measures it, and I don't know how to solve that.
So I guess, so to be clear about my perspective as one board member, I'm hoping that over time that the board is committed to keeping an eye on it and adjusting it as necessary, because we'll learn some things as we implement it and we get feedback. So I hope there's time for pilot, so we start out of the gate even at a different pace. I have another question. You said you were focused more on the teacher evaluation. Is the committee also looking at the principal evaluation?
Oh, I don't know that I said that. I said we focus on the teacher evaluation and then the principal evaluation is like a bicycle. Because, so like when we looked at this area, this was done kind of in tandem because we broke up into 6 different groups, and each group took one of these areas. And so 2 groups had the Danielson's work, 2 groups had the INTAS work, 2 groups had the ISLIC standards. And then those groups were further broken into grade levels and special area, special education. So with the principal one, you really had 2 groups focusing, but they didn't have to break up into different areas for that. So the perception may be out there that we're focusing more on the teacher one. There was a lot more language and verbiage changes that because we wanted to streamline the glossary, we wanted to make sure that we were explicit in the standards alignment and the CT4S, putting that in there. But I wouldn't say that one takes precedent over the other. Just seems like the teacher one goes first, and then the principal one very easily builds off of it. Same thing with student achievement. You want to look at your closest data to the teacher possible first, and to the person, so that would be the teacher classroom data. Then you look at the grade level data. What's the grade level doing? Then you look at, well, how are we doing as a school? Well, what's the principal responsible for? Once we flush out what data we're going to use, then that will rise to, well, the principal's responsible for all of these, so it should be a summative of all the data.
I have a question on the evaluation ratings. So I don't remember that as part of the bill, the legislation. So I just want to make sure I understand what you communicated. The Department of Ed wants us to report to them how many teachers we have that fall into these specific categories.
Yes.
So they've already developed, these are the ratings, and you have to figure out what that means?
Yes, that's my understanding. They gave us very little direction. It came in a memo that I can share with Dr. Boyle. I know she has a copy of it that perhaps she'd like to share with the governing board. But I can actually read it.
So, but our like highly effective rating might be very different than Madison or Galt's, right?
Correct.
That's a problem. Okay.
Just like right now, our effective rating of meets and exceeds on the process and unacceptable may be different than Madison's. But now it's going to be all of that together.
Okay.
I have a question that might be asking you to repeat something you said, and
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
No, I talked
It's
fast.
a bit of a long meeting. When I first got on the board, I remember one of the very first meetings we had was a study session of all the data that had come out with our big book walking through. And at that time, we had it organized so that the principals all sat around the table with us and went through and said, we went through grade by grade, subject by subject, and here's what the trends are, tell us why it's happening. And I do remember one of the principals, or two of the principals or more, saying that, for example, there's such tie-in, oftentimes there's a natural link between math and science, reading, writing, social studies, perhaps, that there was a real, the teachers were really, or that the principals were really pushing having more of an integration between math and having more math objectives in the science curriculum, and reading, that some of that you also have in social studies. So I guess I just want to make sure that from maybe, rather than the details level, the 30,000-foot level, that we are actually not holding teachers accountable for something that maybe is a higher level, more coordination kind of thing. And I do see that some of this is, that's why we have the issue of grade level here rather than just individual teachers. But when we had that decision made by principals that, oh, by the way, we're going to go to the science teacher and have the science teacher emphasize more math, I guess I get concerned at the idea that all of a sudden we're giving props to the math teacher for increased math scores if it's really going on in the science class kind of thing. So I don't know if you understand that. I don't know if that's a question, other than just, I'd like to know that that's how we are, that we are properly assessing people when we're supposed to all be working together. And I see challenges to that when you put it at a very, very individual level of a teacher rather than maybe higher up, or maybe just a group of everyone, and I don't know exactly how you assign people's responsibility.
Well, I mean, and to build on that, what I've found in my experience here in Creighton is the culture of the school and the community actually adds a lot of value to all the different classes and all the different subjects. So I think that hopefully that would be captured in like that 17%. And the clearest example I can think of in how this relates is when we do the CFAs for reading, and then the kids are shuffled every week or every 4 to 6 days, whatever it is. It's really, I don't know how you're going to track that back to that specific student, to that specific teacher. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that there should be some individual, some community, whatever that looks like. I also caution, I guess what I've heard is that some people fear this will pit teachers against each other.
Yeah,
So I definitely want to emphasize, I find a lot of value in the community score component, and I hope that minimizes that concern. So I like sample 1. That's my point. Although I think your numbers are wrong, because I'm looking at it.
okay.
I'll share that with you.
I believe you. I'll go back and look at it. What I tried to do was make sure that I captured principal and teacher, so there's some tweaking. And when
Okay.
in the example on the framework, it says these are samples and not limited to. So I did do some adjustments.
Okay. Well, and I guess then I'll just emphasize too is the organization that sponsored that bill that I work for. It was the intent of the writers.
Mm-hmm.
That 33% was the individual teacher. I don't know if everyone interprets that way, but that was the intent of the writers. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Lindy.
Thank you.
Okay. Next agenda item.